Bad cop. No donut. Deputy Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a sigh. The county sheriff had warned him about Mike. Mike had been part of the community for about 2 years, and in that time had made it abundantly clear he didn't talk to police of any kind. This was not how he wanted to spend his last hour on shift. Thompson turned to the bartender, figuring she would be more willing to talk. "Okay, Sylvia, what happened?" It had been a busy night at Six Rocks, despite the rain and cold. Several regulars sat at the bar and a few people were playing pool in the back. Sylvia walked back and forth between the pool table and the bar, making sure everyone had their drinks and asking if anyone wanted to order. It had slowed down considerably from earlier, and she had just sat down to rest her feet. Telson was starting her descent into the field, and noticed several vehicles parked in the front. Not as many as the last time she was here, but still enough to consider wearing a bandana to cover her third eye. She exited her vessel and waved to Chef Michael, who was smoking a cigarette on the patio. "Lost again?" Chef Michael chided her. "Best steaks in Wyoming," she replied. She passed off several credits to him. The currency wasn't in use on Earth, but Chef Michael would still trade credits for the paper money that was used for transactions. Chef Michael looked at the several tokens and did a quick exchange in his head, handing back $5 to $20 bills. Telson thanked him and walked into the now familiar bar. "Hi, Telk," Sylvia said, getting back to her feet. "What can I get started for you?" Telson looked at the menu. 10 ounce, please. Medium and macaroni salad." Sylvia wrote down the order. "To drink?" "Pat's Blue Ribbon," Telson replied. "Pabst," Sylvia corrected. "Happens all the time." Telson smiled. One day she would learn this English that Sylvia and Chef Michael spoke. Chef Michael had indicated where England was the last time she landed here, but when she accessed their communications network, it didn't sound a thing like how Mike and Sylvia spoke. Her steak arrived before she had taken more than a few sips of the beer. Somehow, she had missed this sweet, sour and bitter beverage. She was still leery about the rock-looking potatoes, but she felt welcome and comfortable here, and the steaks were really good. As she ate, another late-night visitor entered and sat down next to her. His grey hair was balding on top and dishevelled, and he had a rather rotund midsection. It was common for truck drivers as well as freighter captains, and Telson didn't pay much attention to him. She finished her dinner and was about 2/3 into a beer when he began to address her. "Can I buy you another round?" the trucker asked. Before she could reply, he snapped his fingers at Sylvia. "Another Pabst!" he bellowed. Telson noticed Sylvia roll her eyes and go for the beer fridge. Telson reached for another 20, but the driver blocked her hand. "I got this one," the driver said. Telson wasn't about to refuse a free drink, afraid that it might be rude. "What brings you to Six Rocks?" the driver asked. "Just passing through. I have a delivery at Taisho," she replied. "Never heard of Taisho," the driver mused. Telson froze mid-sip. This human wasn't familiar with Taisho since humanity had yet to travel there. She went through her most recent memories trying to come up with an embellishment and remembered a show she had watched on her way in about a silly human in a blue box. "It's near London," she lied. "Oh, Kentucky," he said back. "I've been through there a few times. What you hauling?" Telson was a bit concerned how to answer. Humans hadn't made it beyond their planet. How was she going to explain she was hauling raw teledonum? "Just some stuff. I haven't really looked at the manifest," she said, taking a sip and becoming even further concerned. "The way stations might get on your case if you're heavy," the driver commented. The fire in Tellsom's eyes burned furiously. "You're not exactly a shining example of fitness yourself," she shot back. "I'm talking about scales. You can't just pass them, you know," the confused driver explained. Tellsom only heard a comment about passing her own scales. Her anger bordered on righteous, and she tore into the confused driver. "What about my scales? I would never pass my scales. Would you even know what to do with scales?" The human driver cowered under the ire directed at him. On the verge of hopelessly lost, he attempted one more time to explain himself. "Ah, did Melvin not pull you in?" he asked. "I am not that kind of woman," Tellsom screamed into the poor driver's face. So focused on cutting this human male down to size, for even suggesting she would sleep around, she didn't notice that her bandana had come undone until it fell past her face. She blinked her free eyes in shock as the driver's eyes widened in sheer terror. He cried out in shock while half falling and half running backwards and impacted the wall behind him. Tellsom was mortified to be exposed. She snatched her bandana off the floor and bolted for the door, passing Chef Michael on her way out, screaming, "How do any of you know about my scales?" Chef Michael stood there dumbfounded as she boarded her freighter and shot out of 6 rocks like a bullet. "So, it was just a simple miscommunication?" Deputy Thompson said, finishing his notes. "No harm, no foul. Can I ask you a few questions, though, Sylvia?" "Go ahead," Sylvia responded. "So, several people said something about her having a third eye?" Deputy Thompson inquired. "Probably some spiritual thing or whatever." Sylvia lied convincingly. "Yeah, their story read like some science fiction fanatic posting a half-baked story on some social media site," he commented. "Like aliens exist, seeing pink elephants and giant bunnies and shit." Sylvia turned to Chef Michael, who looked right back at her with panic in his eyes. "You two never saw Harvey? It's a classic," the deputy scoffed. "Anyway, I'm done here. Have a nice night. And watch out for little green men."